And at 10, the Bite of 83. The Bite of 83 is the inciting moment to FNAF 4. It's the reason the whole game is happening. Not the reason for the series as a whole, mind you, but considering how the main gameplay of this game is us having nightmare fever coma dreams, this bite is definitely an important one. And while yes, it's certainly disturbing to see on screen in 8-bit, I think it would be even worse to see it as a VHS tape. The realism that we would get from even like crappy footage is so bone-shaking that you can actually like feel as if you're in the situation. This whole genre of found footage really coming from the Blair Witch Project and its incredible marketing strategy. Like, I had a whole unit on marketing like this in college, okay? It's absolutely genius. And if that sort of style of cinematography was used to make like a whole FNAF movie, or even maybe just a couple of clips, we would all be sent screaming. And watching a kid get his skull crushed by an overpowered animatronic is definitely a shocking moment already. Also, did you know that only 17% of people who watch these videos are actually subscribed? You may not actually know that you're not subscribed, so be sure you check it. And if you aren't and you've watched this channel multiple times, click the button, okay? It makes me feel better about myself. And at 9, spring locking. Along the same vein as the Bite of 83 tape scenario, a found footage video from one of the missing children's spirits' point of view would be absolutely insane. Just like Blair Witch, but make it FNAF, and that's in essence what the spring locking is. Plus, I would love to get these things in more angles, especially the moment where William starts suffering for like the next 30 plus years, okay? That would make me happy. This man has caused me so much suffering that I hope I get to see him suffer even more, okay? This wouldn't even be a scary VHS tape for me, okay? I'm sure the sound of the spring lock when it actually happens would spook me in the moment, but it would be quickly washed away by pleasure, because this goddamn mother hubber would be suffering right there with me. And not like in a 50 Shades of I want people in pain kind of way, but more like seeing him suffer would make me smile, okay? I'm not gonna like hit up Chica afterwards or anything like that, but I'm definitely not gonna lose any sleep over it, you know? And at 8, March of the Toreadors. If you're confused by this number, don't worry, I'm going to explain it real quick. March of the Toreadors is the name of the song that plays when you run out of power in FNAF. It's the song that plays leading up to Freddy's jump scare. It's also slowed down for the games, and it's a song released by George Bizet, released in 1875, and from my understanding, now in the public domain. And while that's interesting, I mainly use the name to illustrate the part of the game that I'm talking about. Having a tape or a Blair Witch style video of you running out of power would be absolutely terrifying, okay? I can imagine it. And if it was made in a realistic way instead of being something like FNAF VR or otherwise with just like some filters thrown on top of it, if it was actually real, it would be terrifying. Okay? That's the kind of thing that would give people nightmares, and actual nightmares, not like the ones that I have where I just wake up panicking, then I'm like, oh wait, no, like actually scary. And at 7, Mic Trap. The Mic Trap versus Will Trap debate, at least in our comment section, seems to be over. Well, at least it was until other videos went out, because, you know, people are gonna start trolling again. However, the debate over who is in the Springtrap suit is sometimes still heavily debated on other comment sections and like on Reddit. And this is specifically thanks to the final scene from the sister location final cutscene that involved the final speech from Michael and the reappearance of Springtrap, confirming theories about him surviving the Fazbear Frights fire. However, the appearance of Springtrap, accompanied by the line of "I'm going to come find you," left some people thinking that Michael was the one in the Springtrap suit instead of William, also leading to the conclusion that Michael was the purple guy instead of William, which is also wrong, as confirmed by Scott when he said check MatPat's explanation on the subject, which MatPat concluded that Michael had no way of being the purple guy and thusly is not Springtrap. But, you know, people are still yelling about it. Even Scraptrap reignited this debate. Like, people now think, or at least used to also think, that Scraptrap was Michael or William, and that Springtrap was William or Michael. And at 6, security breach. All of it. Considering how there are cameras all over the Pizzaplex that we are able to tap into somehow using our Fazwatch, I think it's fairly safe to say that this would be a realistic idea. And honestly, I think all the security breach moments could work as a tape. I mean, like, come on, okay? Especially when Vanny distorts the camera around her and makes herself invisible to Freddy, okay? An invisible psycho bunny out for blood, chasing a kid around a giant Chuck E. Cheese mall for 6 hours? Tell me that doesn't already sound like a horror movie. Especially when you throw throw in like the low quality video that is associated with old security cameras and VHS tapes, okay? Slap on top of that some well-placed static at intense moments, and boom, you have yourself the next Paranormal Activity series. I just think that the concept of security breach as a whole would do well with this style of video. But if you want me to be more specific, give me a minute and I will be. Halfway through into number 5, Crying Child. I've had a ton of people complain to me about how Crying Child's death wasn't William's fault since he didn't put Crying Child in Fredbear's mouth and Michael did that, and then the spring locks failing was because he was crying. Mostly people were complaining about that on TikTok. However, to me, there is no logical way that an animatronic jaw would have crushed his skull. And you know what? Even not just to me. It should be to all of you as well. The spring locks, like, they weren't in use. They didn't have to keep the things to the side because it was in an animatronic mode. And even if it was, an animatronic jaw would require so much power to actually, like, accomplish the closing of that. So like the only way that Crying Child's skull could have been crushed was if Afton had intentionally superpowered the jaw of Fredbear, which would make sense if he wanted to use it as a kill machine, or maybe even a backup kill suit, or maybe he was originally planning on using Fredbear, but then after his son got crushed in it, he was like, yeah, no, let's move on to Spring Bonnie, okay? This is just the worst way of going about it. There is no way that this was a spring-lock failure. The Fredbear suit was already in animatronic mode, meaning that the spring lock mechanisms, which are the things used to keep the robotic parts to the side, which are the things that would have failed, weren't being used. The spring lock failure problem comes from when those mechanisms are put under stress of keeping the robotic bits away from the person inside the suit, and then they fail, and then that's when all the metal parts go back to where they were. So if it's in robot mode, the spring locks can't fail because they're already in use, okay? Keep in mind, again, the term for spring lock in this context is referring to the parts that move the robotic bits away instead of the actual suit, which is also sometimes referred to as a spring lock, but I'm talking about the actual bits that would have failed because they weren't in use. And at 4, Security Puppet. Another mini game from FNAF 6 that I think would make an incredible video, Security Puppet. And I mean like the whole finding Charlotte dead outside in the rain thing, not the whole do nothing until the final round because the green bracelet is stuck outside thing, okay? Because genuinely seeing this from the puppet's POV with like the green bracelet being highlighted and maybe even the only thing that is actually in color on the screen would make this so much more impactful, okay? The pain that the viewer would feel as we slowly crawl out to her bleeding body would be insane. And imagining like the sound effects of like faint screaming or like crying from Henry that we could also have in the background that gets slightly louder as we crawl, I'm actually getting chills right now. It doesn't even need to actually look realistic. You could do this in Source Filmmaker, and as long as the atmosphere is right and you have the sounds right and whatnot, it would be absolutely horrifying. Okay, I would hear those screams as I'm falling asleep, and I'd probably never be able to sleep again. Just saying.
Number 3, the whole office setup. Oh boy, this is a spooky office. Another terrifying element of this game is the office. It isn't so much a moment, I guess, as a place, I know, but still it's completely horrifying, and the first time you wake up there, you're like, woo, this is spooky. Also, I just love like the graphics and the design in this game. It's realistic, but also somewhat childish and toy-like in appearance. It's just got great animation and art in it, and I love it. But that doesn't make it any less spooky. In fact, maybe it makes it more spooky. In the office, you have an iPad or a smart tablet, if you will, with a bear-themed cover wrapped around it, which you can click through for the cameras, and an old big box TV to watch said camera feeds on, which consistently flickers and looks like it's straight out of the 80s or 90s or something like that. It looks old, in terms of the level of its tech anyways. The office is also covered in tons of creepy figures and statues, including a sneaky looking balloon boy and a bunch of creepy animatronic character masks. Yikes. Get me out of here. There's a lot of things going on in this office, and it's like everywhere you look, you're like, that's creepy, that's scary, I don't want to look at this.
Penultimately, and at number 2, the Claw. Elizabeth Afton getting grabbed by Baby is one of the most terrifying moments in the series. Possibly because Crying Child might have seen it, which would explain the mouths on the nightmare animatronic stomachs. However, if we were to see a tape of this moment from Crying Child's perspective, whether that detail be canon or not, oh my freaking god. That would be so utterly terrifying that we may actually, like, I might actually freeze, okay? I don't know how to explain why a kid hiding in the bushes while his sister is grabbed by an animatronic claw while trying to get ice cream would be so shocking and horrible, except for how I just did it. But like, especially considering that this kid ends up turning into an absolute psychopath after this, and by that I mean Elizabeth, not Crying Child, but like, still, okay? The found footage that's like of someone hiding for some reason is always scarier than someone who's in the middle of the action, because I feel like it's, if you're hiding, you can point the camera at the scene, but if you're filming it and you're in the action, you're just filming your feet as you run away, because you know, you're focused on running away, not filming it. Plus, like, in general, this is just a f***ed up thing to watch happen, be it in person or on video. And finally, in at number 1, scoopening. Okay, now, I know that you may be mad and may think that this is a stupid point, but hear me out, okay? The scooper may seem like a weird but normal thing, at least by FNAF standards at first, but like with the blueprint revealing how this thing actually works, seeing this in third person from found footage would be absolutely atrocious. This thing can inject whatever it ends up scooping with Remnant, which is a molten metal possessed by souls, and it keeps a person alive after removing their insides, replacing it with robot parts, and then having those robot parts leave that body. In essence, just making that person a walking case of flesh. Do you really want to watch that happen from a security camera? Or even just watch it happen to someone else, okay? No. In Sister Location, we see it in first person, okay? All we see is just basically like a mighty machine digging into our body. But like, from the outside looking at Michael, we would see so much more. And if it's from Ennard's perspective, it would only be worse. In a 10 hiding spot. This is based on the story, but how the absolute living hell did William get away with this, okay? Hiding the bodies in animatronics? Dude, the smell of rotting bodies would absolutely ruin anything. And the heat from the animatronics moving would speed up the actual decomp of the bodies inside, thus making it worse. And the animatronics are in front of other children every single day, okay? Like, parents even started complaining that the animatronics were leaking mucus and blood, as well as, quote, smelling like death, okay? If this was real, and William getting away with this wasn't important for the story of the games, he would have been caught instantly. They never found the bodies of these kids. Like, oh, we never found the bodies of these kids that supposedly went missing in this pizza place, but now their animatronics are starting to leak blood and are reporting to smell like death. Maybe we should check these out. Oh man, look, 5 dead bodies corresponding to different victims that went missing on the premises. William, you're under arrest. See, like, I don't get how this wasn't cut and dry, how this didn't just... How? In at 9, Mrs. Afton's death. This is more so embarrassing because of the community as a whole. The story of Mrs. Afton, if there even is one, is a mystery that we've been debating for ages. A story that hasn't even had a slight amount of explanation, okay? No references, no mention of an actual name, nothing. So naturally, there are theories. However, these theories have no actual base in game lore, and instead focus on FNAF animated music videos, and stories, and fan fictions that are treated as canon, and sometimes heavily so. The truth is that we have no idea what happened to Mrs. Afton currently, alright? We don't even know if there really was a Mrs. Afton or if it was just like a baby mama or a one-night stand, or like maybe William ended up having like a surrogate so that he could have children of his own, alright? His kids may also just be adopted. There's a whole series of explanations as to what can actually be the case. But either way, for some reason, okay, and I don't know what really caused this to pick up, a load of people think that Mrs. Afton died in a car accident. Like, I mean, it's a possibility. That doesn't mean that it's canon, okay? Technically, there's infinite possibilities, okay? I mean, there are also others that think that William killed her or that she just left him because she found out what he was into, but then again, for some reason, she would also have had to leave him with his prime demographic. Others think that the reason that she left was because he started killing. Others think that she died in a plane crash. And you know what? All are equally possible, but nothing is actually canon, so stop treating it like it is, because frankly, it's embarrassing. In at 8, Princess Quest. Another embarrassing moment for William. Alright, the whole reason he made Princess Quest a thing in the first place was to lock Vanessa away and prevent her from regaining control of her body whenever William needed it, okay? So why the hell did William create some sort of fail-safe to let her escape? Like, okay, maybe he didn't expect Gregory to come along, or maybe he did and figure it out, I don't know. But given the track record of this series and the amount of times William himself, just alone, has been burned, literally, you think that he would have smartened up already. But you know what? He didn't. And you know, it's like having a self-destruction button, okay? It's like having something on the inside of the Iron Man suit or on the outside of the Iron Man suit that someone can just tap and then boom, it doesn't work anymore. Like, why? Why would you do that? It's stupid. If you want something to work, why give it away to not work? Like, this is one of the dumbest things that William has done. And it's 7, Midnight Motorist. While the gameplay of Midnight Motorist itself is pretty simple, the intrigue comes from the hidden lore that we get from this game, all of which is fairly well known to my knowledge. I'm pretty sure everyone knows it, actually. You know how it's called Later That Night in the files and the secret area at the bottom that leads to the whole other section with the Mustard Man and whatnot? Okay, good. Glad we're caught up. So, imagine that whole Mustard Man minigame section as a VHS tape. That would be pretty damn freaky, right? I mean, like, especially given the location and the fact that this is a house alone in a clearing in the woods, okay? Very Blair Witch Until Dawn kind of location there, alright? And even if you want to just use the gameplay of the minigame itself, that's still pretty terrifying. And you know what? Maybe even more so. I've said this multiple times, but the idea that anyone we pass on the street could have just walked away from a gruesome murder is something that is, I think, at least, is one of the scariest realities we all face. Like, I've made jokes like you're only alive because every human you've seen has chosen not to kill you, and in reality that has way more truth to it than you would think. And this VHS tape would be like any other. But considering how Later That Night is commonly seen as later in the night William killed Charlotte, I think the implications of it would be pretty horrifying. And it's 6, Pizza Bot. One of the most interesting things to me in Security Breach was the Pizza Bot minigame, where you choose to go to the bottom of the Pizzaplex, and then like you go through the vent and try to escape the Pizzaplex instead of going through L chips. At that point, you end up getting locked in a security office where Chica is outside the only working door. So, to lure her away, you need to make a pizza using one of the chef bots. So then she goes and gets the pizza, and then you can leave through the door. It's actually like a really cool look into like the Fazbear Kitchen and how it operates now, with service bots kind of taking up the positions of people because they can be unpaid, but also I'm guessing are more reliable to not kill people than humans, which is kind of funny when you're talking about this series. However, the funniest part about it was when I got stuck in the sauce machine and decided to say, "Oh no, Steph Chica," and that's what made this embarrassing for me. I said in a different video I would talk about it at some other point, and this is that point, okay? I don't know how it happened, but when I was making the pizza, I got phased into the sauce machine, which resulted in me being unable to actually finish the pizza, so I just had to wait to be jump scared to retry. But while I was waiting, I decided to say, "Oh no, Step Chica, I'm stuck in the sauce machine. I hope nobody comes by and licks sauce out of my," and then I won't finish that sentence because I think it's fairly evident where I was going. Yeah, that was a low moment for the barnacle.
Number 5, inside an animatronic? At the beginning of the game, you wake up and are told you are in the Barren, a sort of limbo, a place between life and death. But the fact that there is a brain above you, if you look up there, made me feel like we were either inside our own mind or perhaps inside the mind of an animatronic. You know what I mean? Especially as there is, like I said, a brain above you. It made me think that you are perhaps within an animatronic and that Paul Bear is the representation of a previous spirit that basically needed your help to move on so that they would not be stuck here. But instead, you would be stuck there in their place. Which, I don't know about you, but I feel like being stuck in between life and death is definitely a fate worse than death, at least in my opinion. So this creeps me out.
In it for disturbing desires. So this is something that I've noticed in the comments that actually worries me, as well as pretty embarrassing. So we've made a series of videos about how we could turn the closed Chuck E. Cheese restaurants into FNAF joints, okay? Or even like just one ideal location. Not in Utah, though, ironically. But you see, in the comments of those videos, which you should totally go watch by the way, then share them with Scott because I want to kind of do that even if it's just open for like a week or a weekend. And I mean, like, if Mr. Beast can open fast food, I'm sure Scott can make this happen, okay? The comments though on those videos are full of various people telling me how they think it would be a great idea because then they could die in the FNAF restaurant and go on to possess an animatronic. What? Why the absolute living would you want that? First of all, okay, possession, not real. That's not a thing in real life. I've yet to see real evidence of it or anything else paranormal. In addition to that though, even going by FNAF rules, you would need to suffer in order to die and generate the agony that is needed to possess something. Since in FNAF, all possession is actually just a manifestation of your extreme agony grabbing onto something that's nearby, as we learned from Fazbear Frights and Dr. Phineas Taggart. Getting close to the end, and number 3, animatronics. Like, how the absolute living hell did he end up getting away with this? The smell of rotting bodies but also ruin the pizza place. The heat from the animatronics insides when they're actually like moving around would also speed up decomposition, and the animatronics are in front of people every single day. They even started complaining that the animatronics were leaking blood of mucus and it was smelling like death. If this was real life and William getting away wasn't important for the plot, he should have been caught on that and that alone instantly. Oh, we never found the bodies of these kids, but now these animatronics are leaking blood and smell like death. Huh, that's not related. Oh, they even make like bone crushing sounds when they move. And nah, we don't need to check these out. Or maybe we should. You know what? Fine, we'll take them in. Oh, look, we found the bodies of the missing kids. William Afton, you're under arrest. Like, boom. I don't see how this wasn't an open and shut case right away. Like, this was so goddamn stupid. They shouldn't have made it to the first game. His whole plan was a dumpster fire of bad ideas. And even if you think it was the puppet who put the bodies in the suits, why would they do that? Like, why would they hide the bodies? Penultimately, in at number 2, purple versus pink. The purple versus pink guy debate is the Mike versus Will Trap debate, okay? But it's from the early days, when all we had to worry about was different colors and not like 14 different purple characters. This debate came after FNAF 2's Foxy Go 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 minigame, where some fans believed that the guy standing in the corner all smiley was a different group of dead kids, and it was a different killer because he was slightly lighter. That's right, he was not the exact hexadecimal code for purple that we knew, so we thought it was a different person. And you know what? This is stupid. Don't do this, okay? They're all the purple guy. It says so in the FNAF like handbook or whatever it's called. It says purple guy, okay? He's the purple guy. Stop it. Leave me alone, okay? I only use the pink guy when I need an extra slot on a list because there's not enough William Afton versions or something like that, okay? It's purple guy. And finally, in at number 1, the Bite of 83. The Bite of 87 was one of the most mysterious moments in the entirety of the FNAF series, and it was introduced in the first game. Being introduced in the series into FNAF 1 from 2014, the Bite of 87 has remained one of the most debated points in FNAF history, and we can't quite agree on what happened. At first, we thought it was Golden Freddy who caused it, then Freddy, then Mangle, then Fredbear, then Toy Chica, then back to Mangle, and then everyone in between. And everyone has their own opinion on the subject, but for some reason, most people think that FNAF 4 is the Bite of 87. However, it's been confirmed that it's the Bite of 83. Okay, if you Google the Bite of 87 as well, you get pictures from FNAF 4, which is not helping. And I don't think it helped that one of the most famous lines Markiplier has ever said was that the Bite of 87? It wasn't, Mark. I'm sorry. Okay, it's been years. Everyone needs to stop it, okay? The Bite of 83 is FNAF 4, and I still see it in the comments today, so stop it. And 10, Cassidy. Assuming for this scenario that Cassidy is the one you should not have killed, which she's not, but you know what, for you guys. This is one of the dumbest things that William could have done. Or maybe he doesn't actually consider it a mistake, since the one you should not have killed, after all, is keeping him alive. They're doing it as a way to make him suffer, though, so since it's potentially a mistake, but could also be considered a good thing depending on the angle, I'm gonna go with number 10 for this one. But even if he does consider that a good thing, or if Cassidy doesn't end up being the one you should not have killed, which he's not, killing those 5 kids that made up the missing children's incident that included Cassidy was certainly a mistake, since it caused literally everything else in his life to go downhill. I mean, it was starting to go downhill, but it started going even worse, okay? And he does end up suffering extremely only because of that kill and the others, okay? So if you don't want to count Cassidy as the mistake, because she's not the one you should not have killed, which is still the case, I don't care what you guys say, I know. Count the missing children's incident itself as the mistake. In at 9, blueprints. There is no doubting what you've achieved on a technical level. These are clearly state of the art. There are just certain design choices that were made for these robots that we don't fully understand. We were hoping that you could shed some light on those. She can dance, she can sing, she's equipped with a built-in helium tank for inflating balloons right at her fingertips, she can take song requests, she can even dispense ice cream. With all due respect, those aren't the design choices we were curious about, Mr. Afton. This classic line of Afton being interrogated, I'm guessing, that plays the first time you open up Sister Location, just showcases how stupid this man is, okay? The cops know what these animatronics are capable of and what they were designed to do. And you want to know why? Because the blueprints are just readily available. This man included wireframes of a child being stuck in Funtime Freddy and just left it on his computer. What? Why would you do that? Well, that's so stupid. So when they found that, because you know, obviously they're gonna search his computer, they instantly ended up being even more suspicious of him, and then they were keeping an even closer eye on him. That's also probably why he ends up starting to dress in the spring Bonnie suit even, maybe, which ultimately ends up screwing him over as well. So yeah, designing the Funtimes as killbots was definitely a bit of a mistake, but then leaving the wireframes on your computer was something even dumber, especially considering how one of them was meant to symbolize your dead wife, and the other one ended up killing your daughter. In at 8, Charlotte. While yes, Charlotte may have been Afton's first true kill, causing his descent into madness, this is more so because of what she really turns into. Because, like, somehow, this also didn't make Henry end Afton instantly, because if he had, I would understand that. But in the games, Charlotte ends up possessing the puppet, who then gives life to the other animatronics, which causes Afton to disassemble them and then release their spirits that then scare you into your spring Bonnie suit that crushes you, and then you start going even crazier. But even discounting the game aspect of her, like, killing being a mistake, in both universes where William kills Charlotte, Henry comes after him for it, which results in what should be his death multiple times over. And not to mention how in the books specifically, unbeknownst to her, she is an animatronic robot that was meant to replace the daughter that Henry had lost, but it's also revealed that the animatronic is also, her adult form is also Baby as well, who can switch between her human and baby form at will, and then her human form doesn't remember being Baby. So yeah, Charlotte in the books also ends up being Baby, which is just a huge mistake for both Afton, Henry, and Scott Cawthon.
Number 7, Crunch Crunch. Even at the start of the game, there was a moment where I felt particularly spooked. In the beginning, you meet your character, a man who seems to be staring at his hands, not knowing where he is or if he is alive. He laments that he feels empty and as though he's being watched or stalked by some entity, some likely spooky entity. From seemingly behind or perhaps all around him, he hears a sound, a crunch crunch. Crunch. My brain immediately went to an animatronic munching on some unsuspecting victim, grinding them up inside themselves. What if someone like Chica the Chicken didn't just enjoy pizza and cupcakes, I wonder? What if an animatronic developed a taste for something else? A taste for human flesh? The other thing that adds to the scariness of this moment is that we see all this happen on a screen that seems to be lightly covered in what looks like blood splatter. Or I mean, like, the images, you know. The images we see look like they have blood splatter. But hey, you know, maybe it's paint, maybe it's ketchup, who knows.
In at 6, Princess Quest. The whole reason Princess Quest is a thing in Security Breach was to lock Vanessa away and prevent her from regaining control of her own body, or at least all of it. So why did William create or allow for the creation of a sort of failsafe that allows her to escape? I mean, sure, they didn't expect some random kid to come along and figure it out, maybe, but given the track record of this series and Afton's life, you'd think that maybe he would have smartened up, at least after 40 fucking years. But because, like, this is like having a self-destruct button on a bomb, or if the Flash has like a steal all my speed button that someone can just press. It's just stupid. Like, if you want something to work, why give it a way to fail? You know, like, this is like probably one of the dumbest things that Afton has done. You know what? I think there are some dumber things, but depending on the way you look at it, it could have even been higher on this list. But seriously, like, what's the point to put a way to undo your evil plans? Like, it's one of the most ridiculous things in this story. And I get that we can save her and have a good ending, but that ending isn't even canon. So, like, we could have done without it. It's stupid at this point. William has the brain capacity of a freaking toddler. Halfway through into number 5, Finding Springtrap. Now, this is a moment that we actually didn't get to see, but the guys who opened Fazbear's Fright in FNAF 3, they found Springtrap in that back room, right? So why not have a tape of them actually finding the body? That would be some freaky shit, man. especially considering how we know exactly what happens because of this discovery. The pathetic fallacy of these guys not knowing what they've done, but everyone watching knowing what this leads to already creates a pretty damn compelling feeling. But then throw in the horror and the fact that we know it's William Afton hardly clinging to life because he's stuck here until the one you should not have killed decides to let him go, and it just gets worse. But they also think that it's an animatronic that somehow just still works. So yeah, definitely something that would be an insane tape. Add to that the fact that we haven't actually seen this before, and I think we all love it. In it for Elizabeth. Speaking of mistakes, what about your daughter? I'm kidding, although we can't really be sure if she was intentional or not. But rather, I mean, what about getting your own kid killed? Like, I don't know how William thought that this was going to work out for him. I feel like this guy just thought, like, how do I capture kids more efficiently? Oh, I know, I can make a robot to lure them in, and then make sure that my kids love the design so that I know it will work. Hey, honey, come here. Dad wants your help designing this thing. Like, what? Because like then Elizabeth ends up making the most predictable move ever and then going directly against her father's instructions to see the robot that is basically perfect in her eyes. Like bro, like William, why did you think that this was ever going to work out in your favor? Why did you think that this was going to just be all peachy? When has a kid ever listened to a parent? Especially at seemingly what her age is, especially when they might be loaded because you have a successful entertainment business, okay? Spoiled rich kids listening to their dads when they say not to touch a giant robot made specifically to appeal to their generation? Yeah, great idea. You are a special kind of stupid. Just like add a blacklist of kids not to take. Really, you have facial recognition tech in FNAF 2, so come on, just set up a blacklist. Just do it. Wait. Listen to the Shia LaBeouf and just do it. Getting close to the end in number 3, forgetting Foxy. I'm pretty sure that the Foxy mechanic was added to help keep the player from just keeping their screen down for the whole night, since I don't think you can really get jump scared if you don't bring up the tablet with the cameras unless like you're looking to the wrong side of the office. So Foxy was a way to ensure that you actually had to load up the cameras and hold them back as a way to actually have the possibility of being jump scared. Because if you don't look at Foxy throughout the whole first night, he can actually jump scare you. However, forgetting about Foxy and not checking Pirate's Cove is a horrible idea, even if unintentional. My personal strategy is to put the camera on Pirate's Cove when you close the tablet so that you make sure that when you open it the next time, Foxy gets his dose, okay? He gets his attention. And just like Peanut, the SCP, he'll stay in place. And that just makes sure that I don't forget about him either, because my reaction time isn't fast enough to stop him from getting into the office. But ultimately, in at number 2, Springtrap. Being the brains behind some of the most advanced robotic technology in the universe, we'd expect a lot from William Afton. Like maybe using the brain that made these. Or maybe that's asking too much. Because I mean, he's the suit technician, but he's also the main killer who avoided the cops for how long? So, you know, he should really know what he's doing, right? Apparently not, since after discovering the original 5 animatronics were possessed, he disassembled them to learn their secrets, but inadvertently released the spirits of his original 5 victims. When seeing them, he ended up panicking, which is kind of reasonable in my eyes because, you know, they're freaking ghost kids, but also they're ghost kids that you killed. So then this absolute animatronic genius, the technician that handles the suit maintenance and has explained to every employee the proper procedure for the spring-lock suits, including the spring body suit he uses to kill people, ends up climbing inside the suit in an attempt to make himself feel more powerful and scare away the ghost kids. However, dumbass didn't notice the moisture of the room, the leaking ceiling, and just his probably sweat, which caused the spring locks that were active in this moment since it was in suit mode to fail, which would have killed him, if only. And finally, in at number 1, the Platinum Rule. The biggest mistake that William has ever made, and I will stand by this until the day I die, was the fact that he killed people in his own establishment, okay? It's unknown if this was always his intention, or maybe if he planned to kill somewhere else and then just was like, no, I'll do it here. But, like, come on, who the absolute hell thinks that this is a good idea? Who in the comments wants to justify killing your prime demographic for your business? Okay, dealers don't kill their best customers. It's bad for business. So why would William think that this is a good idea? Literally go anywhere else. This is basically just killing someone in your house. Okay, it's putting unwanted and unneeded scrutiny on everything you do. You even end up getting banned from going back while the investigation is underway. It didn't help your business either, okay? You had to close the first location, resulting in you opening another one that killed your daughter, and then you had to close that one and open up a new one, which ends up getting closed, and then you get locked in a room for 30 goddamn years. Okay, this one mistake leads to literally everything else in the series. You don't do that. The platinum rule, we learned this from Barney Stinson. Don't crap where you eat. Okay, if you just don't do it.
Number 10. Backstage VHS tape, episode 1. After Tuesday night, you end up finding a VHS tape following your investigation that night. Of course, you watch it, because why wouldn't you watch it? I'm sure nothing bad can happen as a result of watching a videotape you randomly find, right? The Ring? In the VHS tape, what you witness is Freddy carrying a disembodied arm down a hallway. At first it seems sweet and cute, but then later when you arrive at the door where I suppose Freddy was meant or intending to deliver said disembodied animatronic arm, things quickly become sinister. On the door is a note that reads, "Beware the Mangle." The light in the hallway then turns very red, and in shadow you can see the Mangle's face in silhouette, or what we assume is the Mangle's face anyways, over Freddy's, who looks up before the tape turns to static. What happens to Freddy next? We can only assume nothing good, as it looks like the Mangle was ready to devour something, maybe that arm, or maybe Freddy. I don't know. And friends, before we move on to the next spot, if you love what we do here at Top 10 Gaming, be sure to check out our newest channel, Most Amazing Top 10 Anime. Let's see how fast we can get to 100,000 subscribers! Number 9. People being possessed. One of the disturbing moments from this game comes right at the beginning when you are instructed on how to find out who is possessed. Who is possessed? I do not want to find out any of that. I don't even want people to be possessed, thank you very much. Never mind find out about it. Oh, that sounds horrifying. Possession is probably one of my biggest fears in all of life. I have always feared the idea of losing control of myself or of others around me losing control of themselves, being taken over by another entity who can make you do unspeakable or horrible things. Although, if we're trying to stop the possession, I guess that could be good. But that still means we have to confront it first, which, as I said, I'm not really here for that. Number 8. Watch out for haunted animatronics. So not only do we have to keep an eye out for animatronics that are possessed and mark them down in order to clear out the ghosts, but we will also at times need to call the animatronics who are getting damaged in to be repaired, which I guess over time they just, they become more damaged. I don't know. Sounds easy and harmless enough though. But also, of course, it actually isn't, because repairing animatronics, it's never safe in the world of FNAF, even in the fan-made world of FNAF, the extended FNAF verse if you will. One thing you are instructed to keep an eye out for right at the beginning is haunted animatronics that may report to you to be repaired when you call them. If they are haunted, you are instructed to not repair them. In fact, you shouldn't even be calling them. Just the thought of what may happen to you if you don't follow this rule is enough to send a shiver down my spine. I'm thinking the animatronic goes all haywire and crazy and then obviously attacks and ends you, which is obviously shown by a jump scare, but jump scares just allow me to imagine what else happens, and it can't be anything good, can it?
And it's 7, Henry. And while we did mention killing Charlotte, why didn't you off her dad after you realized that he knew everything? Like, why did you think that killing Charlotte would not have any consequences? Like, you killed your business partner's daughter. That's gonna be pretty obvious to him, especially when he already suspected you were up to something. Hence the green bracelet that he gave her, since he was trying to take extra care to protect her and then she still died. I mean, he could have done more, but that's still a vengeful father if I've ever heard of one, okay? And he hasn't even needed vengeance at that point when he gave her the bracelet. So then, you know that he's gonna come after you, or at least seems like he will, so why didn't you kill him next? Killing Henry could have done wonders for your criminal career. I mean, yeah, the cops are already suspicious, but as long as they can't find a body, you're gonna be clear again. Like, yeah, or even if you're paying them off, you'll be fine. They won't put you away for 5 missing kids. They won't put you away for a missing father as well, especially a jury who has to be convinced beyond a reasonable doubt that you are the killer. And then without a body, there's no real forensic evidence. And again, they didn't put you away for missing kids, so like, come on, just finally off Henry, and then you'd be able to stay as yourself or even Springtrap alive and then not get burned 3 separate times. Plus your son would be alive, so yeah. Well, Michael would be, not Crying Child.
Number 6, Paul Bear. Paul Bear is disturbing, and not just because of his appearance, but because his name also sounds like something a lot more morbid than what he appears to be. I feel like there is an indication in this game straight away that you may be just straight up dead, and this might all be like some weird hallucination when you first meet him. His name? is Paul Bear, which might just sound like the harmless combination of the names Paul with, you know, the animal bear, Paul Bear. But if you say them together as they are meant to be said, considering that there is no space or hyphen between them to denote any kind of pause or separation really, you are saying Paul Bear, which sounds quite similar to pallbearer. A pallbearer is a person at the funeral who's responsible for carrying out the coffin. Usually there are multiple pallbearers, as coffins with or without people inside tend to be like solid wood, so they're quite heavy. For us though, we only seem to get one pallbearer. Maybe we only need one because our body's already gone.
Halfway through into number 5, real life. The Twitter account DiamondZia on June 27, 2020 tweeted out 3 photos with the line, "FNAF will be real in 48 hours." These pictures were of news articles. One from USA Today titled 5 children have gone missing inside Chuck E. Cheese. Parents report smells coming ... One from Associated Press called, quote, "Post-hour worker at Chuck E. Cheese reported dead at 27. And a final one from the Something News titled "Night shift worker at Chuck E. Cheese claims strange movements from animatronics during post hours." However, this title had animatronics spelt incorrectly. It said Amicatronics. Everyone was freaking out, and pictures of the articles, particularly the first one, were shared all over the internet. People were like absolutely spamming everyone, especially because this was around the time where Chuck E. Cheese had announced its closure. However, people didn't realize that these were fake. How are they fake, do you ask? It's easy. They just edited the source code, okay? Because you can change what anything says on a website, but it will only change for you until you reload the page, okay? And you can do this by editing the source code. You just need to find the aspect you're looking for, and then you can change what it says. Once you do that, you can do basically whatever you want. You can even change pictures, okay? So whoever made the original image just found an article from USA Today. It didn't even have to be about Chuck E. Cheese, because they could have changed the picture, and they just changed the title to 5 missing children going missing, and like the same thing with the other articles. Hence why there were only images of the articles and not actual links. It was a hoax that blew up, and people actually believed it, and some still do.
Number 4, looming figures. Whoa. One of the immediate things I noticed in Juniors from the moment you wake up in the Baron is that there are figures looming on the edges of the dimly lit grassy area, the Paul Cave, I guess. That's one of the signs, if we want to call it that. They appeared to me to be clowns or like bears, similar to or more horrifying and older looking really than Paul Bear. Definitely at least bigger and far more menacing. What is their purpose? Why are they there? Well, at the beginning of the game you don't really know, which is what makes their presence even more horrifying and menacing in that moment. They also seem to be gathered in like a semi-circle or a complete circle around you, as though they're waiting for your defenses to fully drop or for you to be left alone, so they might all at once attack you and tear you to pieces. I don't like when it seems like figures are staring at me from the shadows, but they're just on like the edge of my field of vision. The thought of it just makes the hairs on my head stand up. When I was writing this, I could like feel my hairs just lifting slightly.
Getting close to the end, and at number 3, the Afton ending. Okay, well, if you don't want to have the whole security breach game be a VHS, okay, how about the canon ending, or the Afton ending as some call it. The canon ending to this game is some of the most insane luck that Gregory experiences in his whole time at the Pizzaplex. This sort of thing is like catnip for these types of videos. I mean, when have you like looked at one of these or like watched a found footage thing and thought, wow, this is so unlucky? Never. Okay, they always somehow end up having like lucky thing after lucky thing happen to them. So let's take us falling into the room and then fighting off these robots. Just make it a damn VHS tape. Since honestly, trying to do the whole of Security Breach may be a little more ambitious than most people could reasonably expect, but that's just kind of the person I am, though. I end up thinking of cool thing after cool thing, so then I add them to the project, and then it inevitably becomes too ambitious that now it seems like a mountain I have to climb, so I give up. But then I also don't want to make the mountain smaller because all of these things would be so cool and I've already thought about them and want to include them. So yeah, it's happened with literally every project that I've had in mind, and it sucks. So how about this one, we just cut it down to the Afton ending? Is that better for anyone who can actually animate and do it properly? I hope so.
Number 2, wrong guess jump scare. I kind of love Juniors because it's very much like a detective game, and in the case of you making incorrect guesses, everything can quickly go to shit here. which I also love because it just feels very deduction-y. I like deduction games. As we discussed earlier, what you need to do is you need to watch the monitors carefully and keep an eye out for possession. Then you need to report that stuff. This can be denoted by flickering lights or handprints left behind by haunted animatronics, or later on the camera going all weird. However, if you pick the wrong animatronic when it comes to who you think may be possessed, you better watch out. They do not like being accused unless it's true, and they will jump scare you as a punishment. They're like, how dare you accuse me? I am not possessed. I'ma get you. Yikes. Also, these animatronic jump scares are horrifying, and you get to see some equally disturbing but fantastic artwork of the real haunted animatronic in detail after you are jump scared, which I both dread and love at the same time because it's like really pretty but also really creepy. Number 1. Marionette's music. The Marionette's music is loud and creepy, and it lets you know basically what room the marionette is in. Even though the marionette might not be an animatronic you suspected to be in this game at first, I actually love the design for the marionette here. The music in this game overall is just really creepy, but the marionette's music doubly so. If you hear the marionette music in a room and since she's haunted, then you want to guess the marionette. But remember, guessing incorrectly results in you being jump scared. Also, side note, the marionette might be one of the worst people to be jump scared by in this entire game. So while that might not be the one who jump scares you if obviously you misguess the marionette, just know that they are someone you do not want to end up on the wrong side of. If you misguess them, they would jump scare you. So while they might not be the one who jump scares you depending on, what you're guessing and if it's right and all that stuff, just know they are someone you do not want to end up on the wrong side of if there is a risk of them jump scaring you, because their jump scare I think is one of the worst in this game.